Hey everyone, Ryan here, or MandRproductions, and I've got a huge update on LEGO Star Wars rumors for 2025 today. We've got new info on sets we already know about, like the ARC-170. We now will talk about the minifigures that are going to be on the set, and we now know the May 4th set for 2025. Hint? So before I could even edit this video, more LEGO Star Wars 2025 set rumors drop, and I decided to shoehorn them here at the front because they weren't given any specific release dates as of yet. They'll still likely release in January or May, as we'll discuss later on. That seems to be the release cadence for the first half of 2025, but let's get into these three. Hit the like button. Set number 30708, a Millennium Falcon Polybag, probably going to be $5. Hip hip hooray. Moving on, a much more exciting set, the 75400 PLO KOON'S Starfighter. We already know an ARC-170 is supposed to release in January of next year, so getting the PLO KOON'S Starfighter to go alongside it and basically recreate a scene from Order 66 is amazing. We've technically had this before, back in 2010, with the ARC-170 and PLO KOON'S Starfighter releasing at the same time. Just this time they might actually both be specifically Revenge of the Sith based, which would be pretty cool. We'll get more into the ARC-170 later, but as to PLO KOON'S Starfighter, I mean, it'll clearly include Plo Koon, it'll probably include his astromech droid, but I think the biggest question surrounding this set until we get official pictures is, will there be another minifig or two included in the form of a Phase 2 Commander Wolf or a Phase 2 Wolfpack Trooper? It's something that I have certainly seen a lot of fans asking for over recent years, and it definitely seems very possible. It's absolutely a set where it would fit. It just comes down to whether or not they're going to put it, you know what I mean? It's a coin flip of what they decided to do, basically, at this point. Unlike what we'll talk about with the ARC-170 clone troopers, I'm not so hot on the idea of a Wolfpack Trooper in this set. Like, until they fix the helmets and the printing on the helmets, this type of figure will not look like it did in 2014. So I'm a bit apprehensive about the idea of these figures coming out with the current state of clone trooper helmets and their prints. Like, they're just not going to be able to print it right. Like, that's just a fact. If the helmet changes in 2025 and we get better prints because of that, you know, we could be in for a good year as far as clone troopers go. So, you know, that's not like a concrete rumor at this point. We don't know anything about it. But, you know, I know a lot of people, regardless of quality, will definitely want a Wolfpack Trooper or Commander Wolf in that set. Anyway, there's one more set that was rumored that I didn't get to touch on in my original recording, and that's the unknown set number, AT-AT Driver Helmet. So this one has been brought back from the dead. Essentially, it was a set originally rumored to release in 2021, but got canned. I can't remember what exactly replaced it. I think it was Luke Skywalker's pilot helmet. I might be mixing my years or helmets. The point is, the AT-AT Driver Helmet was a finished, done set basically a few years ago that was supposed to release, but I think, you know, as a store exclusive, a store chose another build over it. That's just kind of what the story seems to be with that. Seeing it brought back here in 2025 is really exciting, and of course, it means that all the talk that, you know, LEGO Star Wars basically said that they were done making helmet sets, which I don't think was a great thing to say. Like, it just always felt like the type of thing that you could always do one or two later on, do a few here, do a few there, and here we are, like, a year after they said they're done and there's more. Like, it just, I don't know why you said it to begin with. Anyway, those are the sets that don't have specific release dates yet, but let's get into the other stuff because there's still a ton more to talk about. We'll, of course, start in January, releasing January 1st, the 75401 Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. This one's already quite controversial given its $45 price tag with only 290 pieces. It supposedly uses a brand new cockpit windshield piece, which definitely could make it feel more worth its ridiculous $45 price tag if it's a really, really nice printed piece. You know, I think it will be, but I still don't think it will necessarily make the set worth $45. As far as the minifigs go, we're supposed to get an Ahsoka Tano, and it says she's apparently using mid-leg, so I think it will be really cool to have a younger Clone Wars style Ahsoka minifigure. Alongside her, of course, will be her updated R7A7 astromech droid, and then finally we're getting a new Clone Wars Anakin, who I really hope has arm printing. If we think back to what we saw with Mace Windu in the fighter tank, like, there's no reason the Clone Wars Anakin here shouldn't also have nice arm printing details. So I'm very hopeful that the figures in the set will be top quality for $45, but at the same time, like, you know, will they really be top quality? The most hype set, well, maybe not the most hype set now, because it was the most hype set, but now the UCS set, we'll get into it, you know, probably is the most hype set, but the 75402 ARC-170 Starfighter is going to have 497 pieces. It's going to be $70. There have been two previous versions of this, 2005 and 2010. Both the previous versions had 396 pieces, so this one's 101 more pieces, but this one does cost $10 more than the version from 2010. So what we're looking at is a little shrinkage on the size of the ARC-170. They're going to be using small smaller pieces here, and we are thankfully though still getting the same amount of minifigs that we got in the last two ARC-170s. They're not taking anything away there, which is surprising to say the least, but it's really good because we're going to be able to fill out the ARC-170 as the figure list has leaked. Now, it unfortunately doesn't include a Jedi. A lot of people, because the 2010 one included Kit Fisto, were hopeful that this one would include some sort of unique Jedi that we don't usually get. And there were definitely a lot of options there, but LEGO has gone towards the just it's a clone set and you're only getting clone troopers route here, which I frankly kind of agree with. That's fine, but it's definitely seeming like an episode 3 ARC-170, as the first clone trooper we're getting is Oddball, who I think is kind of front and center in the ARC-170 in Revenge of the Sith. Behind him, we have Captain Jag, who we actually had the minifigure of back in the 2010 ARC-170, so very cool to finally get an updated version of him. And then we will be getting a regular clone pilot in this, along with R4P44 as the astromech droid, who was the same astromech droid that we saw in 2010. So really just one new character and a few updated characters, and unlike the bulk of the other clone troopers that LEGO is releasing these days, I'm actually really excited for these ones in particular because it's almost impossible for them to mess up. Like, they're probably going to be using the same helmet mold that we had from 2010-ish. That helmet mold is really good. There's nothing that's going to be wrong with that. The printing on it has been historically very, very good and fine, and the design of these is going to be good. Like, I'm just very excited for some good clone troopers out of LEGO Star Wars here. Next up, we have set 75403, Grogu with his Pram. This is a buildable character set, so I expect to see a Grogu minifigure along with a plaque, a little display plaque, and of course a small buildable Pram. Usually you kind of get the buildable minifig version of the big thing. And then as far as the build goes, it's got 1,048 pieces for $100. And the Pram, I don't expect to have like any huge functionality. Like, I would be very surprised if they were able to have the closing door on the Pram at $100. It'd be awesome. I don't not want it, but just like, I'd be kind of surprised if they were able to incorporate that, but that's just kind of me guessing there. Another idea in this set to me is to include things like little foods or frogs or whatever it is that Grogu eats. Maybe the ball again, although I would love to see them do something different than what they did with the last buildable Grogu, who is still down there looking ever so cute. So I'm very excited for this one at $100 as well. Like, the last buildable Grogu was 90 bucks. Let's just say in today's money, it's $100 if LEGO released it. So I'm very curious, like, how big the Grogu head inside will be. It has to be like half that size, right? Because we're still accommodating the Pram, probably a small stand for the Pram. There's definitely some extra stuff that has to go into a newer set like that. So I'm kind of interested how big this one is going to end up being, but it's definitely going to be a very cute set and is probably going to be a very, very popular seller, especially with that Mando movie on the horizon. So very good timing with this set's release. The next 2 or 3 sets indicate something interesting to me. We have set 75404, the MIDI-Scale Acclamator, and 75405, the MIDI-Scale Home One Mon Calamari Cruiser. We also, it's not said to be releasing in January, but 75406 is also like a set that's releasing next year. It's not a skip set number as far as I'm aware. And so I would assume that one will slot in here as a third MIDI-Scale set. That's just me guessing. The bigger point there is that the 2 MIDI-Scale sets that we know for sure are releasing in January and not March like this year. And we have no rumored sets for March of 2025. And that to me says that there's not going to be a March wave next year, which I think is actually really good because the January wave this year felt really small. Like, there were like 2 or 3 sets in a polybag, and it's like, man, the January wave fell off. And so I think they spread themselves too thin. I like that they're kind of recondensing the waves a little bit by taking those March sets and pushing them into January. But as it pertains to these MIDI-Scale sets, I wouldn't expect any new information on them until we just get pictures. There's nothing really else to learn. It's going to be a $50 Acclamator with 450 pieces, no minifigs because it's a MIDI-Scale set. I mean, potential for maybe an anniversary brick of something, but I think of an Acclamator more of an episode 2 set. So like, I don't know. I would just expect a MIDI-Scale Acclamator. Nothing extra special or crazy included. The biggest thing to me with the Acclamator is it's not a Venator, and it basically in my head takes the spot of what could have been a Venator to go with the Invisible Hand from 2024. So that's my only gripe with them releasing an Acclamator. We also have the Home One Cruiser, which is supposed to be $70 with 559 pieces. Again, no figures, no rumor of any anniversary brick or anything, but that could still maybe happen. But also, like, again, sometimes they're just not going to come with them, and I don't expect this one to come with one. The final known January 2025 set is the 75410 N-1 Starfighter for 4-year-olds. So it'll have 92 pieces for $30. I know, it's crazy, but they'll all be printed. There'll be larger bricks than normal sets, and I assume 2 figures. I don't think I've seen like any concrete rumors on this, but it's going to include Grogu and Mando, right? I'm sure it will include the nice version of Mando that we've seen. There's a non-zero chance that we get new versions of both Grogu and Mando in this set. I wouldn't say a very high chance, but considering that we got like a new version of Yoda from Young Jedi Adventures recently in that set, right? You know, there could be a new wild looking, you know, baby eyes to Grogu for little kids in the set. I wouldn't bank on it, but, you know, just for the fun of the speculation, Shifting our attention to the May 2025 releases, the first set I'm actually not entirely sure is releasing in May of 2025. I've just seen conflicting information out there, but it's a 75399 U-Wing at $80, and that's actually the same price as the U-Wing released for Rogue One in 2016, but that would indicate to us that this newer U-Wing will be smaller than the old one, which I know a lot of people don't always love when they shrink things down, but it's just become a fact of being a LEGO Star Wars fan at this point, I guess, in most cases. And so I'm still very excited for this set. Hopefully it will still include 4 or 5 minifigs. I suppose there's a chance it'll be based on Andor Season 2 because that's supposed to release next year, and it would definitely be a fit if that ship showed up in the show. I think there's supposed to be a big time jump anyway, so like it would definitely work. Set 75407 is a set that we talked about a little in the last rumor video, but it's a buildable LEGO Star Wars logo. It's supposed to be $80. We don't know the piece count, and I think the original rumor that we discussed was that it could include a George Lucas minifigure, and that's something I would really love to see. It's a figure that costs many thousands of dollars on the secondary market because LEGO made them so limitedly and handed them out only to like very, very special people. I guess I don't really know how it was handled. But the point is you can't just buy an official LEGO George Lucas minifig if you really wanted to, unless you're really, really, really rich. And so I'm hoping that this set is the perfect opportunity to release that. I still think he'd also make like a really good May 4th minifig promo polybag, but either way, could have an opportunity here. It was a rumor. You know, apparently reputable leakers are saying that it's not happening in this set. I think the biggest indicator, though, won't necessarily be like what a bunch of people are saying online, but Marvel is actually supposed to be getting its own buildable logo that releases in January, so months before the Star Wars one. And I think if the Marvel one has a figure, the Star Wars one will have a figure, and if the Marvel one doesn't have a figure, the Star Wars one won't have a figure. And I think it'll be pretty cut and dry like that. So I think we need to just, you know, keep our eyes on what the Marvel logo has included or doesn't have included, and that will be a pretty good indicator for what the Star Wars one will or won't have included as well. Moving on, though, we've got a couple of banger surprise sets for May of 2025, starting with the 75408 Jango Fett's helmet. It was originally rumored to be $80, but I've seen some reputable sources apparently saying that it's going to be $60. We'll see which it ends up being, but the only note I have on that is if it ends up being $60, well, the original Boba Fett helmet was $60 back in 2020 when it released, and the Mandalorian helmet that's out now is $70. So you're going to tell me that Jango Fett's helmet, out of the goodness of their heart, is $10 cheaper? The answer is no, it's downsized. And so if the helmet is $10 cheaper than Mando's, then it just has to be smaller, in my opinion. There's no way they're just going to cut you a break on the pricing on this particular set, in my opinion. I would love for that to be the case, but we all just know at this point how that works, right? So I think Jango Fett's helmet at $60 would be cool. It would just be a real big shame that it doesn't match the sizing of the others if my philosophy is correct there. But if it's $80 and it matches the size of the others, great. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Would you rather have an $80 Jango Fett helmet that matches the others, or would you want a $20 cheaper and therefore smaller Jango Fett helmet? I think it's an interesting question. I can definitely see both sides of the story, but personally as a collector, I would just love to see a helmet that matches, you know? It should go without saying, though, that it won't include a Jango Fett minifigure, but our next set, 75409, the May UCS set for 2025, just might. It's rumored to be a UCS Jango Fett's Slave One. This is one of the most surprising picks for a UCS set, if not the most surprising pick for a LEGO Star Wars UCS set, maybe ever, or maybe since Obi-Wan's Starfighter in 2010. I mean, it's completely out of left field for LEGO Star Wars to release Jango Fett's Slave One next year. This does, of course, unfortunately completely wipe away all of the other possibilities that were on the table for the Revenge of the Sith anniversary with like a UCS ARC-170 at this $240 slot, or a combo pack of Anakin and Obi-Wan's Interceptors. Like, there are some other cool options, but man, Jango Fett's Slave One is a great surprise for 2025. I'm very hopeful that the build will stay pretty close to what we saw for the 2015 Boba Fett Slave One. That's, I mean, obviously regarded as one of the best UCS sets ever. It's one of the most well-designed LEGO Star Wars sets ever. It just looks so fantastic, and I definitely think they could improve upon it. It has been 9 years, or will have been 10 years by the time Jango Fett's Slave One comes out, so like there's totally going to be some room for improvement there with new parts, new techniques, and so forth. But I also think like you could almost release a complete recolor of that and get away with it, which is crazy. You know, it speaks to how good that original design was. So I'm very interested to see what they do there. Like, I'm sure they'll have it updated. I'm sure it won't be a one-to-one color re-release, but it will definitely be interesting to see how far of a departure from that original design it is. And then, I've almost forgot. I'm all over the place. Okay, well, let's talk about the figures. The figures are supposed to be Jango Fett and Boba Fett. Wow, shocking. I know, we're all so surprised. Apparently, the Jango Fett will have arm printing and leg printing. Huge surprise as well. I know, I can't believe believe it. And then, you know, young Boba will look like young Boba. I'm sure they're going to be amazing minifigures. And I think the thing I'm stoked most about this set, I mean, I love that it's Jango Fett's Slave One and all of that. It'll be called Jango Fett's Starship, by the way, not the Slave One. It won't say Slave One on the plaque like the old one. You know, Disney asked Lego not to use Slave One, so it'll be called the Starship, but we'll all call it the Slave One because it's just what we call it. Now, you'll notice that this UCS set has 2 figures, and inherently there's nothing wrong with that. The only like thought in my head was like, oh, the last Slave One had 4 figures for a UCS set, which is pretty abnormal at this like $200, $240 price tag. They usually don't do that. It's usually just the 2. And so I was looking at it and I'm like, you know, 2 figures. You could have also included the Obi-Wan and Taunwi, or a new Kaminoan, or a new random figure from episode 2, whatever, to go with Jango Fett that actually makes sense there. Or maybe Jango Fett in his other outfit would have been, man, I hope that's in there. They should 1000% include a second version of Jango Fett in his other outfit in this set. Oh man, if they missed that opportunity, that would kind of blow. But dude, that would be so cool, wouldn't it? Just 2 Jango Fetts in the same set. Anyway, the point I was trying to get to was like, I was trying to think, I was like, why, you know, you could have included 4 figures, you could have made it work. And then I thought, well, Lego did something a few months ago that like kind of went under the radar. I picked up on it when like it happened because I thought it was weird, but I didn't like put 2 and 2 together of why they would do it immediately. They moved the retirement date of Obi-Wan Starfighter from the end of this year to the end of next year, which means instead of being a 2.5-year set, it'll be a 3.5-year set by the time it retires at the end of 2025. And I was just like, Obi-Wan Starfighter, like, it's good, it's nice, but it's nothing special. There's no reason that set should be out for another year because it came out in the summer of 2022. Most sets, if you come out in the summer of a year, you know, a good majority of them will retire by the end of the next year or at the end of the next year. And so Obi-Wan's had already overstayed that by a year. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. You know, maybe it's doing especially well. I don't know. And then when Jedi Bob Starfighter was coming out, I was just like, all right, well, like this kind of takes that slot Obi-Wan's has to retire. And then it's not. And I'm like trying to figure out why. And then sure enough, you know, down the street comes Jango Fett's Slave One. And I'm like, that makes sense. And then I'm like, well, what if next year in 2026, they release a big Obi-Wan's Starfighter UCS set, so you have both next to each other, just like the 2010 one. And then I'm like, well, that's not happening because the scale matches. The Obi-Wan Starfighter, you know, both these sets might not be exactly 1-to-1 figure scale, but they're pretty dang close. So both the Obi-Wan Starfighter and the UCS Jango Fett Slave One, they like match in scale. They are intended, maybe not originally intended. I'm sure they weren't working on a UCS Slave One. I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I would imagine when they started making Obi-Wan Starfighter, they didn't think they'd be making a UCS Slave One. Let me just say that. But it's just something so interesting to me as a Lego Star Wars fan. I just watch a lot of things and I see what's going on, and sometimes they're meaningless, and then sometimes they have meaning, like Obi-Wan's Starfighter randomly getting extended a year when it's already really overstayed what would be normal for a set like it by a year or 6 months. And so I was just looking at it, I was like, all right, okay, cool, interesting, good to know. I'll keep my eye out for more things like that in the future. You just never know what different things might or might not mean. I feel like I talked more about the happenings around the Slave One than the Slave One itself. I'm stoked about it though, man. It's going to be a nice set. So definitely let me know what you think about that one in the comments below. It's a real shocker, frankly. I kind of thought they had some easy, normal sets to do next year, but they really, you know, came out of left field with Jango Fett Slave One. Now, there's still one more set rumored for 2025 in May, and that's the 75416 Buildable Chopper. It's supposed to be $100. It will probably include a minifig version of Chopper and a display plaque that has the print of Chopper and some information about him. I assume there'll be some play features baked into his head and stuff. Like, I'm pretty excited for what, you know, he will do functionally. I'm sure it'll be pretty popular. I know a lot of fans really like Chopper and have been asking Lego to make a buildable Chopper. I'm very happy that it's not $200. Like, I'm glad that it's $100. It'll probably be fairly close to in scale with the recent $100 R2D2, $140 C3PO, $200 Chewbacca. Like, they've kind of got that new thing going on. And so I'm hoping it'll be, you know, reasonably in scale to that. So I'm definitely excited to see what turns out for the Chopper. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about these sets in the comment section below. Those are all the rumors for 2025 so far. The biggest thing missing here is Revenge of the Sith stuff. You know, Palpatine's arrest. UCS turbo tank, I don't know, like what, you know, what big UCS set would you want from Revenge of the Sith? I don't know, but like Kashyyyk playset. I know a lot of people, including myself, want to see a new General Grievous chase. I mean, there's a lot for Revenge of the Sith that could be done in 2025, and so far for the first half of 2025, the ARC-170 definitely feels like a Revenge of the Sith set to me, but it feels like it's on an island. It could be the case like in 2022 when it was the Attack of the Clones 20th anniversary, where that Obi-Wan Starfighter came out. It was the only Attack of the Clone set of that year. It didn't have any special marking or packaging or anything, and that was just kind of it. And I would hate for that to happen to Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, we'll see, I guess, is basically where I'm at on that. I think summer of 2025, having a bunch of Revenge of the Sith sets would be pretty cool. I mean, I'm hoping for like 3. That's kind of my minimum number of Revenge of the Sith for summer. I think it's also notable that we don't have any dioramas in the first half of the year. And okay, I'm going to talk myself into this. I'm going to make a different video. I'm going to talk myself into this. For summer 2025, Revenge of the Sith. Let me know down in the comment section what you think. Bye.